Right, I'll take that on board. Definitely will.
Anytime, anytime.
Good evening, guys, and welcome for our third show today. Don't forget, guys, if you've got any questions or answers, don't forget, if you're listening on the radio, make sure you put all your questions in the right hand side, not the left, because we get it all mixed up. So, thank you very much. Sarah Johnston, our guest tonight. Hiya, how are
Hello,
you?
I'm good,
Um,
thank you. How are you?
Fine, thanks, yeah, and thank you very much for coming on. I I've read your story and I find it very interesting because you got a cerebral palsy daughter. Is it daughter?
Yep,
And
daughter.
yeah, and I was reading your story and I was kind of like going through it, and I was thinking, gosh, and because you've been through quite a bit, and because you got you've been did you find it difficult when you kind of like with a cerebral palsy child kind of like working as well?
Yeah, I think when you kind of get married and you have children and you kind of expect your life to go down a certain path because that's what society kind of dictates, really. And I think having my first child with a disability definitely kind of threw me off guard, and it was a shock because we didn't know until her diagnosis at 13 months that she
Yes,
had
yeah.
cerebral palsy. So when she was born, everything was fine, and you tick along really. And I went back to work, and everything was okay. So when the news came at 13 months, it really threw everything up in the air. The rug literally was pulled from underneath me, and life as I knew it before that day completely changed. So with working as well, and at that time I was working for the private sector, and so it was really difficult at the beginning because one, I was trying to understand what cerebral palsy meant, and actually what it meant for us as a family and what it meant for us as parents. And we were kind of like thrown into this new world, and it was kind of really hard to comprehend. And throw in the mix of working as well, it was tough. It was tough to kind of to manage.
Was
uh,
it so, was it really hard when you were told?
hmm.
And did you think your life was overdone with, or did you find it kind of like tough to carry on?
No, I think when we were told in such a matter of fact. It was kind of like somebody just told you what you had for your lunch. It was that kind of informal,
So
and I
it
had
wasn't subtle then. It wasn't in a subtle way
no,
or
no,
nothing.
absolutely not. And I kind of had to say, "Excuse me, can you just repeat what you said?" Because literally, it was just a matter of fact, and I kind of thought, "Hold on a minute, did I hear correct? Did I kind of did I misheard it?" And she repeated it again, and I was like, "No." And then it was denial. It was actually that shock and that denial of no, they've got it wrong. I looked at my child and I looked at the doctor. I looked at my child and I looked at the doctor and I thought, no, no, they got it completely wrong. So we went to Harley Street, which,
Yeah.
as you know, is a renowned expertise, and they'll know they're experts. These doctors here who I'm talking with, they don't know what they're talking about. So off to Harley Street I went because I was sure that they would know what they were talking about. And I was told the same thing in a much more diplomatic way.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
so I was armed with the MRI scans, and off I went to Harley Street with her, and yeah, he confirmed, yes, she's got cerebral palsy. So it was really in that moment that it was kind of, right, what do we have to do? How can I help her? What do we need to put in place? And coupled this with really researching, because we were given nothing to really say, this is what it means, this is what kind of life may look like, because we were Googling, we didn't understand. And you can imagine when you
yeah.
Google
Of course, not. It's a shock,
cerebral
isn't it?
palsy, you get all sorts. So we became our own experts. We became masters of our trade, really, because it ended up being a job. I know it sounds quite cruel, but it ended up kind of, right, I've got a task to do. And I became very task orientated, and that kind of mothering aspect was more of a kind of, no one's going to tell my child that she can't do XYZ. It's a kind of a push through. So through me actually becoming a tyrant in a way, I kind of became obsessed that she wasn't going to be another statistic. She wasn't going to be someone who the doctors thought that she would never achieve anything. And we were told she would never hold a pen, she would never walk, she would be
Yeah,
slow.
yeah,
All these
yeah.
textbook kind of theories.
How
Yet
did
they
you
didn't.
feel? How did you feel when you were told this information that really that you didn't really want to hear, really, because to you taking all this information in, it must be really upsetting.
It was heartbreaking. I tell you, it was so, you feel as a mother completely useless as a woman, really, because your job as a woman is to have children, for those that want children. And you kind of I felt a failure. I had nothing to measure against, in terms of, I didn't have any children at that time, so she was my firstborn. And going to the mother and baby groups that you become part of, um, everybody else had children that were crawling around. Mine didn't. You can't talk to other mums in the same way as those who have got able-bodied children, because they're on a different path to you.
Yeah,
Your child's not doing the things that their child is doing. And so it becomes, you start to then become isolated. You then start to, it kind of gave you a good idea of what it was going to be like in terms of schooling. So
yeah.
then I kind of got a glimpse of what life would be like, really.
And what did you feel? What did you think that what life will be all about? What did you think?
It was really, it was, on one hand, it was kind of, I'm determined to show them. And on another hand, it was kind of this state of depression that I had. I got
Mm,
it deeper and deeper, kind of deeper into a depression state, in that I wouldn't talk to anybody. I wouldn't, I would go in my bedroom, I would cry, I would, I would be having this kind of this facade that I could cope with anything, and yet deep down I was hurting, and I was kind of so badly kind of, I would say I was depressed, and I was diagnosed with depression, but I
yeah,
just
yeah,
kept fighting it. I just kept kind of ignoring it. I just kept kind of,
yeah,
pushing through, because my child was greater than me. My child was needs were bigger than mine. It wasn't about
yeah.
me, it was about her.
What was your relationship like?
With
That,
my child,
with your husband?
It was great. It was great. I mean, it would, you know, it was, I suppose I had a job to do, and my job was making sure that everything was in place that she needed at the time that she needed it. And when you're faced with people saying that can't happen, or no, that's not possible, no wasn't an option in my book. It was
Yeah, yeah,
not going to happen. You know, it was a case of it is going to happen. You know, she's got this. There's nobody else that can help her, so
yeah.
it will happen one way or another. It's going to be
Well,
done.
you did, didn't you? Because you kind of like in 2011, you fundraised. You got £75,000 in 6 months.
Yeah,
You know, you took your daughter. You know, your daughter had life changing operation.
yeah,
You know, you took her to America,
yeah.
and you know, and she's defied, you know, all the professionals. You know,
Absolutely.
and she's done quite well, isn't she? And they said to her that she would never pick up a pen.
Yeah,
And she's doing, you know, she's doing really well with her. She's done well with her studies. She's not
yeah,
confined to a wheelchair.
yeah. I think as you know, it was as you get into the system and you find this out, because I kind of was in management at that point when she was going through school. So I was working for the NHS at the time. So
Yeah, yeah,
therefore I kind of had I was still in, you know, I was still working, and that was kind of my choice, because I didn't want to have this whole carer responsibility. I wanted to still have a career as well, and that was important for me, for my own well-being. But unbeknown to me, what was happening is that the more I was consumed and hiding behind either my professional label or my carer label, I was losing who I was. So I became more withdrawn and more kind of like, I can do anything, you know, and that created another sense of really kind of a false identity, really. And I think all the time that I was pushing and, you know, raising money for America, kind of just really kind of nurturing her to becoming who she wants to become. Um, it was kind of making sure that she had the skills and she could do anything. And the biggest message was that anything is possible. Yet what
yeah.
she
Of
was
course it
hearing
is.
from
Yeah,
everybody else was that just be just be satisfied with what you've got, with what you have, and just don't over excel yourself, don't over expect, don't, you know, don't push yourself, because that's not for you. It was at school, it was university's not for people like you. It was, you're lucky to be in sixth form. It was maybe you should have a plan B, because really that's not going to happen. You know, it was all very, very
yeah,
empowering. And yet, you know, she's just finished her master's in international law,
yeah.
and
Law degree.
she's
That's
got
really
a
good,
law
isn't
degree
it?
as well. So my kind of biggest, you know, the biggest takeaway really for anybody, whether you have a disability or not, is that if you've got an absolute vision in terms of you've got a goal, or you've got a kind of an idea or a dream, I wish, if you start your sentences with if only or I wish I could, the thing is you can, and the only thing that's stopping you is you. And when you're stuck in your head, like I was for so long, it is so difficult to view the world in a way that you want to view it, because your truth is only what you're thinking, and therefore your thinking is stopping you from achieving what you want. So I did a lot of self-development. I mean, my background is training and coach. So I've been a trainer for over 25 years and a coach. So I had to really look inside myself and actually get help for me. So I was helped by others to get me through my kind of down period. but then, it doesn't go away. You just know the strategies to manage it. And I still get days where I feel so low that I have to manage that and get myself out of it. But I know how to do that. I've got my own strategies now.
Great. I want to touch on your books as well. Um,
Mm.
Transforming Your Life. Well, um, tell us more about that.
So that's my second book. So my first book is Dana's Walk. So that's kind of my story about bringing up a child with disability as a family and going through America and the transition of coming back from America, etc. So the Transforming Your Life was really capturing what got me from where I was to where I am, and how I transformed my life. So a bit of it was what I've just said in terms of,
Yeah.
getting help and actually getting the people, the network around me to support me, to get me through, the dark stages and the dark areas. But ultimately, it does come down to you. It does come down to self, because if you haven't got that desire to make things differently, nothing's going to change. No one's going to come and save you. No one's going to wave a magic wand. It does come down to you, and that is the harsh truth, because the tipping point really for me was one morning when I looked in the mirror and I was like, who is this person? I didn't recognize the person staring back at me, and that is
Yeah.
the honest truth. And I thought, this enough is enough now, because I was going to the doctors, getting off sick and going, the vicious cycle. And I just didn't want that anymore. And I got my gym stuff out, and I hadn't been to the gym for such a long time, and I just put it on. That's it. So this was day one. So it was me kind of making that choice and making that decision to change.
Yeah. And we can all change, can't we? If we got the desire to change, we
Yeah.
can do it. If your daughter can can do it, anybody can do it.
Yeah.
And
Well,
she's an inspiration, isn't she?
I think so, and I think, it gets to a stage now, and this is completely honest. She'd been at home for so long, and we were we were carers. We used to do everything for her, and when she went to university, she was living away from home, and university was never about the degree. It was never about that. It was about finding who she was as a person, because I knew that she had to find her own path in life. She had to, because I wasn't going to be around forever. I couldn't, I would not want her to be living with me at all. So uni was really her choice to go, but I would never force her to do anything that she didn't want to. And
Mm,
she made that decision. So
mm,
I think that was her, by her desire to kind of want to live her life, whatever that looks like. I don't know, but it was a uni life, which I was really shocked about, because believe me, the stories of uni life are true. And
mm.
naively, as a mum, I'd say, no, she won't do that. No, she won't do that. She won't go drinking. She won't go clubbing. She won't do anything.
She probably is. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. She introduced me to alcohol drinks that I'd never ever touched before. And yeah, I mean, your daughter kind of, introducing you to new drinks. I mean, yeah, I
You
would
wait.
never.
You wait a minute. She introduced you to her husband. See.
Yeah, yeah. But I kind of, when I think back, and I kind of think, wow, I could never, I suppose, I could only dream of that, I suppose. You think it would be nice if she did kind of lead her own life and go to uni and stuff like that. And I
Yeah.
think you have to put that intention. When you make that intention, then you are going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't. With my with us here, we don't believe in negativity. We believe in positivity, and
Yeah,
we believe everything can be achieved if you
yeah,
put your mind to it.
yeah.
And I think when reading your story about you and your daughter, it kind of like, I just kind of like was in tears because for somebody who's got cerebral palsy, some people will just be in their wheelchair for the rest of their life
Mm,
and won't do anything. And all of a sudden, your daughter got up and said, "Right, this is what I want to do. I'm going to do it." And she defied everybody. All
mm,
the professionals thinking they were probably saying, "Well, no, let's just give her this and give her that drug probably." And she got up and she went to uni and she did a law degree.
And the thing is, I just want to add though, when she was in sixth form, she got the LSA and she got the support, but she was always made to feel that she wasn't supposed to be there.
Mm,
She was always kind of not really encouraged, not really kind of pushed. And she has achieved 3 distinction stars for
yeah,
her
I
age.
know. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Okay. Now, when she got into university, we had a letter from the head mistress from her school saying how absolutely proud they were of her. And I thought, wow, that's a little bit too late. I would have appreciated the support during her time
yeah,
at school. And I thought, you kind of, you've got to be aware of how you talk to children, whether you have a disability or not, because you have a huge influence as teachers, as parents, as role models, whoever you are, that what you say has a direct impact on how they view their life.
yeah, yeah. Because the trouble is, so we live in a. I was talking to somebody earlier. We live in the world where there's a lot of stigma against
Mm,
disabilities.
mm,
I remember kind of like when I was at school, somebody said to me, "Steve, you would never pass any exams," and I was a bit of a slow learner and everything. And when I did my CSEs, I did them, and they were all shocked, and they said, "Oh yeah, yeah." And the trouble is with people, soon they look at somebody with a disability,
yeah,
they think, "Well, that's it," don't
yeah,
worry about it. You don't need to take this or do that, bye bye. And
yeah,
that poor person then is stigmatized.
yeah. And believes it, and believes it. And that's the thing. So they've taken on somebody else's belief
Yeah,
as their own.
yeah,
And that's wrong. And
it
that's
is
wrong.
wrong. It is totally wrong.
Yeah,
And we do a lot of campaigning on here too against that, and we
yeah.
do a lot of it. And the trouble is though, with people who have disabilities, when you go for a job these days,
Yeah,
so you only got to walk through the door or go through the door on your wheelchair or something, and they said, "Sorry,
yeah,
there's no job here."
yeah,
And again, it's all about stigmatizing, and things like that. I think people who's got disabilities are more capable, okay, than us.
everybody, whether you have a disability or not, has got skills and has got a uniqueness about them.
Yeah,
So in my world, what I do is that disability is a secondary to the person.
yeah, of course. Yeah,
Everybody, if you think about it, has some disability.
of
Now,
course.
when somebody wears glasses, they need to have glasses as an aid. So if somebody needs a wheelchair, they need the wheels to walk
Yeah, yeah,
effectively. And I think until we get away from this kind of stigma, as you say, in terms of
yeah,
seeing the disability first, as opposed to seeing the person first, that's when society will change. And I
yeah,
really believe, when we had the Paralympics in London, and everybody was raving about it, and this is going to change disability. It did absolutely nothing,
It didn't.
because
Yeah.
it did what it did at the time, and now the Tokyo Paralympics again, it did what it did at the time. Yet we detach ourselves, or society detaches ourselves, to kind of think disability is mainstream, really. But it
Yeah.
kind
Yeah.
of, people's perception of a disabled person is either way out there in terms of the Paralympians, or it's way down below. It's kind of
Yeah.
like not on the equal part,
Yeah.
and
Well,
that is wrong.
well, we're all equal in life, aren't we? We're all equal. And, to me, everybody is, I love everybody. And, and at the end of the day, let's chuck the stigma away and kind of like accept everybody for what they are and for what they got inside. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And that comes from, like as you say, going for job applications, and actually just pushing through those barriers. And I think it's as much as society doing it, but it's also as much as empowering each
Yeah.
and every one of us to kind of push through.
Yeah.
Because the minute you don't, the minute you give in, is the minute that society just says, well, that's the way it is.
Mm,
Well, it's not
mm,
actually, because everybody can push through, and
mm.
not allow others to kind of tell you what
Yeah.
is right and what is not.
Yeah. And also, when somebody says to you, sorry, but, you can't do this and can't do that, that is totally wrong. Totally wrong. And
And
I'm glad
also,
I'm glad your daughter said, thought to herself, well, I'm going to prove people wrong. And it's
yeah,
unbelievable. That's
and
unbelievable.
the thing is, I think also it was never about proving anybody wrong. It was about kind of pushing through and kind of saying, no, this is what I want. And actually being confident enough in yourself to question.
Yeah.
And actually, when somebody says something, to question what they've said, in terms of, because if somebody says something about you and you know it's not true, you would question that, and you would say, no, actually that's not right, this is the way it is, kind of thing. So
Yeah.
I think, I think people who have got a disability have got a responsibility as well, to kind of, you know, push through, and to kind of say, no, that's not the way it is. This is what I want.
Okay. So, your your last word. If people are listening out there at the moment, which they are, what would you say to them now? What is the message that you want to tell everybody?
Gosh. So to sum up, I would say, if you've got a desire to do something, find a way. There are lots of ways to do things, and you might need a different route. So, for example, my daughter couldn't get into the law profession because she couldn't find a job. So, what she's doing is going back to uni, getting a teacher training qualification, getting a job as a teacher, and then doing her barrister kind of qualifications alongside that. So there's always a way to find. And I think the biggest thing I would say is, find your reason, find your why. So why do you want to do what you want to do? Because if your why is really, really important to you, then you will find a way. So really find, what is it that you want to change? What is it that you want to do? And really, really acknowledge that importance, whether it is really, really important to you. Because if it is, you will find a way.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Thank you. That was that was really good. So, guys, don't forget, if people want to contact you and or buy your book, How can
Yeah.
they do that?
So the first two are on Amazon.
Right.
So it's on Amazon UK or Amazon.com. And the third one is via Lulu, but I'd have to kind of send you the link for the third one.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the third one is very quickly permission to do life your way. So it's life and business your way, not anybody else's, your way. But you can contact me via Facebook under my name, or LinkedIn or Instagram as well.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on and
Thank
sharing
you.
your pub story. I loved it. Okay,
Thank you.
and thank you, guys. I'm going to be back around about 9 o'clock. In the meantime, take care. If you stay there for a second.